Hi guys, I'd like to talk briefly about a new project that I sort of started today that came to me whenever I was interviewing with some companies and stuff like that that were interested in Selenium and things like that. But in practice, actually, people don't really use Selenium anymore, and there's a variety of good reasons for that. Uh, what they do use instead is like the Chrome DevTools protocol directly through things like Puppeteer or the thing that I'm interested in now, which is called Playwright. It basically serves the same purpose as Selenium in that it's a cross-browser testing framework, but it doesn't have a lot of the limitations that Selenium has. For example, Selenium will not allow you to use selectors based on things that are not standard attributes. Like, for example, if you want to select off of an ARIA attribute, you can't do that in Selenium. However, in non-Selenium frameworks like Playwright, because it's directly running JavaScript inside of the window, that works just fine. You don't have any problem with that. And it's all very, very fast. And it's basically Node.js controlling the DevTools protocol in all of the browsers. So basically, what we would end up doing next is I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, it's got a binding for Python, but it doesn't have a binding for Perl. Let's make us a binding for Perl. I looked at the Python binding and I'm like, wow, this is some pretty complicated stuff. So I thought it might simplify things a great deal to just make a little server that's not exactly the Selenium server, but it's a close analog with regard to it's just a little Node.js program written in Express that basically just you feed it, well, what's the function I want to call? What's the page I want to hit of the various browser pages we might have open? And then what are the arguments I'm going to pass to it? And basically go from there. That'll result in the minimum amount of code I have to write and the minimum amount of setup for the users and so forth, in that I can have the Perl bits make sure that the dependencies within PM are done right, and if we can't just immediately explode and try to nudge people into the right way of doing things. So let me sort of jump into what I got. Basically, it's a Playwright Perl is the name of the repository that I've made today, and it's still very early. Really, all you can do is what I'm about to show you, which is very primitive stuff. But the idea is eventually going to be basically our Perl module is actually going to do basically the same thing Selenium Remote Driver does, in that it's communicating with some HTTP protocol that interposes essentially for us with the actual browser driver itself. And unlike Selenium Remote Driver, like when you're running direct driver mode in, say, Selenium Firefox, Selenium Chrome, all that kind of stuff, you won't have to worry about things like zombies, which are very commonly done with the browser drivers from Chrome driver, Gecko driver, all these sorts of things. It's not very well done compared to things like Playwright, where if you Control-C a Playwright program, it always cleans up after itself. It's great stuff, and it's a heck of a lot faster than Selenium. So let me just sort of hop in right here to show you basically how things work. Right now I've got a little playwright.js I've written, and it has a few options. Basically, you tell it what browser you want to run and whether or not it needs to be visible, which the -v flag will actually basically show us the browser that we actually want to use. You can also pass a port optionally and so forth. And you see it's opened us up a browser here, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to tell it a command to actually execute, which is basically exactly what you would call on a page object from Playwright. And so the command here you can see is fill. The args are what you want to find, which is like the input here, and then what I actually want to fill the input with. So let's just execute that. We've got our JSON response, and now we can go over here to our Chrome browser, and you can see it actually filled it in with what I told it to fill. So we're executing commands on pages. The next thing that we need to do is be able to make new pages, which is new tabs. We need to be able to page through those pretty easily like we do with Selenium. and so forth. As you can see, I've got shutdown working. Basically, you just click that. It'll kill the browser. Browser's gone, and the process is no longer even running. So it'll be really easy for me to manage this because I can just say, I'm going to use a port that's unused. And then whenever I send it the shutdown signal, it will clean itself up. I'll, wait pit on that thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Life is easy, fully compatible, no problems anywhere, right? So past that, whenever I get all of the commands obviously working in Playwright, the next step is going to be writing a companion module to this, which actually implements the WC3 WebDriver standard correctly, because none of the actual browser driver vendors really do that, to be entirely honest. And even when they do implement it correctly, they have all of these artificial limitations on the testing that are just not useful in practice. The overlapping check in particular was probably the one that was most controversial in the Selenium community, because everybody had been used to, in WebDriver for years, not having to worry about the overlapping check. And the way they implemented it also had some weird bugs, especially on Firefox, where it was like if you used negative margins, it would never detect where the element was correctly. But they never fix those things, and things are just not in great shape altogether with Selenium, which is why I'm sort of settling on the opinion that it's kind of an abandoned standard, and that this is actually what people are going with in the future. I mean, the fact is, had Selenium been adequate, nobody would have even written Playwright in the first place. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So hopefully we will have a good Perl framework for Playwright very soon, and then maybe around the end of the year, we can have a good compatibility shim that will make it drop-in replacement for Selenium Remote Driver, Selenium Chrome, all those sorts of things, but also give you the extra methods and the new useful things that you would want from just the Playwright library itself. All right, guys, that's basically all I've got for tonight. I'll probably be showing you new things about this pretty soon. Where this fits in for TCMS and all that stuff is that it's yet one more thing that I could even make as a service. Isn't this cool? But I'm going to need to test TCMS at some point, and so since it's a Perl project, let's make sure that I can actually test it with Perl, and this will do the trick. All right, more updates on this going to be coming soon, and hopefully progress is quick and we can have some good stuff for you. All right, I will say goodbye.